The NBA season is just about a week into the books here, and we want to check in on some of the UConn guys in the NBA. So joining me today, we've got Paul Garcia. He's a NBA writer for Spot Up Shot. So Paul, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
So you've been covering the Spurs for a while here. Last year, we've got the draft going on. You see Steph Castle as the first round pick for the Spurs. What's your initial thought when you see him and start to think about how he might fit in with this team?
Just what you've already seen already early on with him is just the defensive skills that he's bringing to this team right away. That's one of the holes that this team had, was a very good on-ball defender, and sure enough, Steph fits that role really well. As far as his point guard skills, we didn't know exactly when they first drafted him. We didn't know they were going to go out and sign Chris Paul, but
Yeah.
obviously the talk was they were looking for a point guard, and so we didn't know exactly when he came into the NBA if he was going to be a point guard or be a combo guard, a shooting guard. It looked like he played a little bit more off ball at UConn, and could run the point at times. And so we did see when they made that move of signing Chris Paul that maybe he will be the point guard of the future for the Spurs, but at least early on in his rookie season, they want to let him kind of play off the ball and then also be on the point, but more so off the bench.
I know a lot of UConn fans might not be quite as familiar with the Spurs and where things stand with them as a franchise overall right now. I think everyone can certainly look back at the glory days when you think of the Spurs, but they've been going through this rebuilding process. Fill us in a little bit on what the situation looks like in San Antonio and where this team is right now.
Yeah, so you're right. I think they've missed 4 or 5 years in a row. They've missed the playoff picture ever since basically Kawhi Leonard got traded, and then they tried to fill the holes in by getting DeMar DeRozan and kind of keeping a competitive team around. But then eventually they just said it was time to basically reset here. So they start off getting some younger players on this team that are still there today. Players such as Keldon Johnson, players like Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, and then of course 2 years ago they had a really bad season, but that got them the number 1 pick, and they ended up drafting one of the future great players of this NBA
Yeah.
career is going to be Victor Wembanyama. So then they got Wemby, and we did think they would be a little bit better last year, but they actually just got 22 wins just again, even with Wemby. But that afforded them the chance to get back into the lottery and get a really good draft pick, which they got the 4th pick, and they drafted Steph. So it's really been a rebuilding last few years for the Spurs. But we don't expect them to be a playoff team right away in this year. But the expectation is that they're at least knocking on that play-in door, maybe not being a play-in team, but at least being closer there. Definitely more than 22 wins, maybe somewhere in the low 30s. And so that's what they want to see, is some progress this year compared to last year, even though they had Wemby last year.
Yeah, so you add Wemby, you add Chris Paul, you've got Steph Castle on this team. Now, where are some of the other kind of holes or areas on this team that the Spurs are looking to boost?
I mean, really, I would just say shooting still. I mean, even though like Castle's great, great addition for the team. That's not one of the skill sets that he was known for. Is his outside shot, and multiple Spurs players are not known for that. So that's the big thing for this team is, they're obviously guided by Wemby. Devin Vassell's he's been hurt to start the year, but he's eventually going to come in probably next week. He returns, and he's going to be their second league scorer, their second go-to playmaker. From there, Jeremy Sohan's had a good start to the season, but he doesn't shoot any threes. Castle will probably be the 4th or 5th player that they're looking to create some offense for them. And so I think that's one of the areas for them, is that they need shooting on this team. They still haven't really been able to get that, and shooting as far as like a young player who's going to be a high volume shooter. I think that's one of the big takeaways from what this team still needs out there.
I know you mentioned, when they drafted Steph, Chris Paul wasn't on the team yet. People weren't quite sure what his role might be. What kind of role do you envision for Steph now that you've seen him a couple games, you've seen him through preseason, you've seen him through summer league? What's kind of the expectations for him year one?
So year one, he's going to definitely get minutes. I mean, he's already been in all 3 regular season games to begin. He's going to basically be coming in off the bench alongside Trey Jones, who runs the backup point guard, and they're going to basically share duties. Sometimes Steph will run the offense, sometimes Trey Jones will run the offense. But one thing we saw already in the second game of the season was that the Spurs needed his on-ball defense on Jalen Green from the Houston Rockets, just because, like I said, already you can just see it by the eye test. He's the best on-ball defender they have out on the perimeter. The guys that I mentioned earlier, not Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, these guys, they've been in the league for a few years now. They're not known for their on-ball defense. So Coach Pop already had Steph in crunch time against Houston in that second game where they ended up getting the win. The Spurs did, and actually, this is just a major sign of respect to Steph. The Rockets were actually devising a scheme where they were trying to run some guard-to-guard action to get him off Jalen Green. Basically, they wanted him away from the ball at all costs, and so that just shows what other teams are already looking at with Steph. The fact that they want to move him away defensively off the ball. And so, like I said, he's going to be coming off the bench. There might be nights when, Chris Paul's dealing with an injury, or maybe he played too much the night before, so they need to sit him. So maybe Steph gets to start at the point, or get more minutes on those kind of nights. But I would say early on, that's kind of, they want to ease him into this role of being more on the ball. And I think he's going to get minutes just because, like I said, Pop is a coach who loves defense. And if you play defense, you're going to get minutes from him. And so that's one thing that they already need from him. And so he's definitely going to get his minutes.
I think we've seen UConn guys go to some of these NBA teams where maybe rookies aren't given quite the opportunity that it seems like Steph is going to be given in San Antonio. It seems like if he's able to play defense at a high level, he's definitely within the Spurs' plans to get significant minutes throughout the year.
Yeah, he's definitely part of the 9-man rotation. I mean, that was really that was obvious from both training camp and then the preseason, and then we've already seen it again through just 3 games here in the NBA season. Again, where he's going to have to, and it's expected, where he's going to have his growth spurts are going to be
Yeah.
more so on the offensive end. That's actually why in that second game against the Rockets, just last on what was it? Yeah, last night, they ended up losing there, but Steph wasn't in crunch time there, more so because he was kind of a little bit sporadic with his turnovers, and it's understandable. His
Yeah.
offense is going to that kind of comes along. So that's going to be mainly where he has his issues at times is on the offensive end. So in certain situations, the Spurs won't have him on the floor, even though as good of a defender as he is. So again, he's definitely part of the rotation. Like I said, he's going to be getting minutes, and they're going to give him his chances to grow and learn on this team. And so yeah, that's what I expect from him.
If they're expecting him to be the potential point guard of the future here or a combo guard, how big of a thing, how big of an advantage is it for him to get to learn under a guy like Chris Paul and play with a veteran like that who's been around the NBA and is kind of, I think, just thought of as like the consummate professional there.
Yeah, no, that's going to be huge for him. I mean, a lot of rookies don't get that opportunity to have a mentor like Chris Paul there on the team. And so Steph's already talked about, he knows just in practices on the court how Paul's kind of giving them directions, the young players kind of just seeing some of the passing lanes that he sees, some of the way he's reading defenses. He's starting to learn from Chris Paul early on. So I think that's going to be hugely beneficial, whether or not the Spurs want him to be the long-term point guard, or whether or not he's going to be part of the lineup going forward in terms of like becoming a starter maybe next year or maybe even later on in this season. But again, I think a lot of that part will come down to, how much does his outside shooting improve?
Looking to add some local flavor to your lineup? Martin Rosals is the MVP of your game day spread and a slam dunk for any occasion. Proudly made in hard-hit New Britain, their famous kielbasa and hot dogs have been a fan favorite for over 96 years. You can find their products in grocery stores across the state or have them delivered directly to your home court, coast to coast, via martinrosal.com. Take your taste buds to the championship and go support a UConn fan-owned business. As you look at this Spurs team, and I think UConn fans are probably familiar with Pop and more the image of Pop and what he means. But what's it like to play in Pop's system, to be a player on his team, and kind of what Steph's going to get to go through playing for a coach like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have high expectations. I would just say, like I said, the fact that Steph's known for his defense, that really favors, you get in Pop's, rotation just by that point. That's one thing Pop definitely wants is a player who plays defense. If you come into the league and you're mainly known for your offensive skill set, it's going to be hard for you to get minutes in San Antonio in year one. But the fact that Steph is known for his defense, that's going to help him out a lot. And Pop, like I said, Pop's going to have high expectations for him. There's going to be some times when he has to, already, like I'm looking at his stats here. He's averaging I'm almost like 3 turnovers right now a game, and Pop's kind of letting him. He understands that's going to be necessary. Steph's going to have to learn to make mistakes, going to go through those mistakes, but he's not going to just yank him right away. But
Right.
so there's going to be some instruction. There's going to be a little bit of leeway because he's a rookie. But like I said, the fact that he plays defense, a coach like Pop is definitely going to have high expectations for him, but also give him his chances out on the floor.
Yeah, it seems like too, just based on the situation for the Spurs right now and where they are in kind of the contention scheme of things, it seems like it gives Steph that opportunity to get those minutes and play through some of those challenges, not necessarily at a detriment to the team and what they're trying to do this year.
Yeah, for sure. And he's also like learning how to build chemistry with his teammates out on the pick and roll, on those dribble handoff actions. Also learning exactly for me, I think one of the biggest takeaways I see from him is whenever he does turn the ball over, it's a lot of times it's more so just kind of adapting to the speed and physicality of the NBA game. And that's expected. He's 19, 20 years old out of college. So that's something where again, they got to give him his chances to create, have those turnovers, but it's going to pay off in the end, I think, for them. And so, yeah, the fact that they're not, immediately a playoff contender where, they're trying to win the title this year,
Yeah.
that gives him this opportunity in his rookie year to kind of ease into this situation while getting real minutes for this team.
we really haven't mentioned Wemby much outside of just, a couple passing mentions. But what's it like now to have a core group of younger guys now on this team? When you look at Steph, you've got Wemby and some of those other names you mentioned.
Yeah, I would say like that's the thing is they're finally starting to build San Antonio is they're finally starting to build a foundation here where they have Wemby, they have Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan's probably going to be part of their long-term plans, and now you have Steph Castle. So that's already like four players on their team that are going to probably be future outlook players for them. And then Victor, I mean Victor is Victor. I mean he does things every night that are just wild that you don't expect on both ends. And even last night, I mean he was actually under the weather a little bit, but still put up 20 rebounds. He grabbed 20 rebounds in that game, blocked four shots. One thing I want to talk about how Wemby impacts Castle is that defensively, Steph mentioned how he's really never had like a defender like this. I know he played with Donovan Clingan as well at UConn last year, but Wemby covers up so much space inside that Steph feels that he can be more aggressive on the ball, going for deflections, going for steals, and he doesn't have to feel like he has to recover because Victor's there to clean up those
Yeah.
misses in those events. And then also he talked about how basically he just has to throw the ball up anywhere near the rim, and Wemby's gonna get that alley oop if it's there from. They actually haven't connected on an alley oop. They haven't really tried one, so I'll be honest there. But I think it's gonna happen. As the year progresses because Castle
For sure.
did show multiple times last year that he could throw oops to Donovan Clingan.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's going to be a fun duo to watch. You like that Steph dunk the other night? I mean, I saw that highlight going around.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of that in him.
almost like every preseason game. That's another thing too. Like you're trying to read what he does. I mean, just the stuff that he does. He almost in every preseason game he had like a throwdown dunk. He had that one last night against the Rockets with the two hands
Yeah.
where he cut. He's also had some crazy finishes. Like on Saturday he's driving in the lane off a pick and roll. Jeremy Sohan's kind of flanking with him. He fakes a pass and then still goes up for the layup and like almost throws in a little Euro step in there. So like just watching him, it's like wow, some of the stuff that he's doing as well. He's a very crafty player. I also want to give credit to his vision, his passing, his touch. There was a play the other day where he gets the ball under the court, sees Malachi Branham running down court. He throws a one-handed bounce pass on the money, and Branham catches it, throws it to another player, and that player finishes the dunk. So I think that's something where you see that he's he has a very unique skill set in both his finishing and also his passing skill set. He does a really good job for a rookie of even if he gets trapped, like bringing the ball into the paint, he kind of scans the floor really quick and then finds the open shooter.
So safe to say, through first few games here, you're feeling pretty happy with the draft pick and optimistic about the future here for Steph.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think he was a really good pick. I mean, like I said, defensively, that's already the area where he can play NBA ready defense right now. And then offensively, you're seeing that he has those, those growth spurts where he's going to have some a really strong skill set, whether it's driving and finishing. And of course, the big long term question will be his outside shooting.
Yeah. Um, I know we're here mainly to talk about Steph, but some big news today from another former UConn player who played for the Spurs, Rudy Gay, announcing his retirement. What did Rudy mean to some of those San Antonio teams?
Yeah, man. He was a really good professional. In the locker room, he was always available for the media if we need to ask him questions, things like that. He was, also had like a I was actually trying to pull up some of his quotes. He just had like this kind of like tone where like he was almost like he wanted to joke about certain things at times. Like it was just like at different times. But it was a really good pro in San Antonio. I really felt bad for him that he signed on with the Spurs when they were still kind of close to that contention window when
Yeah.
Kawhi right before Kawhi left. So when he signed with the Spurs, the intention was to still be on that team with like Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge, that was putting up some fights with the Warriors those last few
Yeah.
years with Steph and Durant and all those guys. But then, the Kawhi situation unfortunately unfolded the way it did. He ended up forcing the trade and asking for the trade. And so Rudy, had to play with those like DeMar DeRozan teams where, they were decent, but they weren't going to be a championship contender. So I did feel that, he didn't get that opportunity that he signed on for with the Spurs to be in a championship contender. He was kind of robbed of that in that season that he arrived in San Antonio.
Yeah. No, I know everyone up here is a big Rudy Gay fan. Nice to see that translated down your way there. I'll wrap with this one. UConn fans have been to back-to-back national championships, back-to-back Final Fours. This year, the Final Four is in San Antonio. Hype up the city a little bit for UConn fans already thinking about trying to plan a trip down that way.
Yeah, I mean, just San Antonio's a great city, especially where they hosted, which is the Alamo Dome's usually where the Final Four is held, and that's great because it's right there downtown. There's a lot of hotels, restaurants. It's pretty much what you could pretty much stay wherever you're going to stay, and then basically walk to the arena on those kind of game nights, or get like an Uber or Lyft to those kind of places. And yeah, San Antonio has a lot going on. If they're staying downtown, they've got the Riverwalk. If not, there's just little pockets of areas where movie theaters, strip malls, all those kind of things going on. There's a lot of different events. There's all sorts of different sporting events, as well as different kind of attractions and things like that. We have in San Antonio, we have Fiesta Texas as a theme park. We have SeaWorld. There's a bunch of different things that you're able to do, and of course, great food out there in San Antonio as well.
Yeah, I know everyone's excited to hopefully be making it out there end of March, early April. So, Paul, I really appreciate you taking some time. Shout out your work and where people can find it if they want to stay up to date on Steph and the Spurs now and into the future.
Yes, please, if you'd like to subscribe to my Substack newsletter, it's called thespotupshot.com. So again, the website is thespotupshot.com. Also, I have a podcast and a video series as well called it's called the Spot Up Pod. So yeah, you can find me on everywhere, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all those kind of places.
Awesome. Well, Paul, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on and talk a little Steph Castle and the Spurs tonight.
Awesome, Jared. Thank you so much for the opportunity.